We've had a lot of remakes, remasters, and re-releases come out in the last 10 plus years now. Some make more sense than others. And today, I'm actually taking a look at one that makes a ton of sense because it's a game that's become so rare and so expensive that it's just not approachable by the vast majority of people, and that's Ninja 5.0. Limited Run Games and Konami reached out to me, asked if they could sponsor a video where I do check this game out, and I was already interested in doing so, naturally I said yes, and that's what we're going to do today. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you're new. Now, this game released back in 2003 on the Game Boy Advance, of course known as Ninja 5.0 in the US and Ninja Cop in Europe, which, if you look at the top here, it's included. That's actually a nice touch to have both of them here available to play through. It was developed by Hudson Soft and published by Konami, and while reviews were strong at the time, the sales, not so much. And it's often viewed as one of the rarest Game Boy Advance games on the secondhand market. It gets, at times, $300 or more for just the cartridge. So if you consider that, it fits in perfectly for a new release of this title. And as I mentioned, it is being handled by Limited Run Games in collaboration with Konami, which means the Carbon engine is once again being tapped. And it was really funny, even back when I was running the retro game stores and stuff, I would hear about this game, people would mention it, but there are also a ton of people who have never heard of it and would be confused by that price point, and really it fell into kind of niche status. So being able to check it out here, really sit down with it, was very, very interesting. This was around the time of the Game Boy Advance really hitting its stride, a few years on the market with developers being a bit more knowledgeable of the hardware, and sure, the Game Boy Advance could do some 3D visuals, but 90% of the games focused in on that 2D aspect, especially when it came to action platformers. I remember around this time, animations in particular are what stood out to me with the Game Boy Advance coming off of my Game Boy Color, and Ninja 5.0 stood out big time in this department. You can see it especially with the moment-to-moment action of swinging your sword and jumping and moving around the different levels here. The game follows a ninja detective named Joe Isugi, who is tasked with defeating a terrorist group that is influenced by mystical masks. And while that's great and all, back then we just heard Ninja Detective, and that was pretty much it. That was enough of a plot back then to want to jump in and play an action platformer like this. I mean, come on, Ninja Detective, it's one of the most video game titles for a character ever. You're outfitted with a sword that will one-hit most of the regular enemies and has a nice animation that adds a lot of weight to it when you connect. This is the sort of thing I was referring to earlier about the Game Boy Advance, just adding more to the standard 2D game back then. It still works well here, and if you miss, it can also leave you open to getting hit, so there is a bit of strategy involved depending on enemy placement. Your secondary weapon includes a set of projectiles depending on your power level. This ranges from shurikens to full-on laser beams that destroys everything in your path. There's also an ultimate screen clearing technique that is available when your power meter is completely full. However, my favorite part about this game has nothing to do with weapons or projectiles. It's actually the grappling hook. This might be one of the most out-of-control grappling hooks I've experienced in a game. It can be frustrating, hilarious, and satisfying all at once. It's straightforward in how it works. You jump, and then you press the jump button again to activate the grappling hook in the direction you point. After this, provided you hit a surface with it, can be off the wall insane depending on how you're angled and moving. I had some cases where I went flying around a point and directly into spikes early on to getting the hang of it and sort of swinging around like Spider-Man almost across these different pits. I do like, though, how it's always available to you with no cost, and it is fun to try getting around without ever touching the floor or using it in combat with other ninjas that can randomly appear. Just understand, sometimes it can have a mind of its own, and I ended up kind of laughing when this would happen. The general structure of the game is fairly straightforward. You have a mission select menu that lets you choose where to start with a star system showing difficulty of each place, and from there, you have a set number of stages to go through before encountering the big boss. As you navigate each area, you need to find different colored keys to open doors and progress. It has a somewhat open-ended design in that you can find keys and save hostages in different orders, with everything eventually leading to an exit through the red door. Hostages will add to your high score, and it's shown at the end of each area how many you saved, since an attack at the wrong time can lead to missing a perfect score, which actually leads perfectly into the benefits of the Carbon engine, since it helps a lot with some of the games from this era, and the weird difficulty spikes. At any time, you can rewind mid-game with a 5-second buffer. For me on the PS5, it was L2, giving you a bar at the bottom to show how far you can rewind. The 5-second buffer was enough most times for me to retry a certain obstacle or enemy encounter, and since it's so quick to use, it came in handy many times. There's also an options menu that can be brought up with R2, letting you adjust screen size, apply an LCD filter, swap borders, change sound quality, and save your game. The quality of life with saving and rewind on the fly does make a lot of the games from this time period much more approachable, especially if you have to put the game down mid-mission for whatever reason. You also have a ton of extra content to look through involving the history and release of the game. It's sort of taken on this niche cult-like status in the retro gaming scene, so to have things like the music player that lets you go through tracks from both remastered and original OST, along with a full museum, is awesome. While animation and concept art is included, I really like going through the high-quality manual just like the old days. Oh right, see, back in the day, we would get paper manuals with our games, which probably sounds really weird now, and for the most part, it just went over how to play the game, but along with that, you had some really cool artwork that was attached to us, some fun facts or even backstories for the characters, sometimes just tips and tricks, and if you're really lucky, someone filled out cheat codes in the back of it in the little notes section. Sorry, the old man will stop talking now. The scans that are included for the manual are super high quality, so even zooming in, it looks really clean. Box art is also included here for both the US Ninja 5.0 and European Ninja Cop versions. While the US version here looks more familiar to me, I have to admit the Ninja Cop cover looks really dynamic, although the back is very busy with a bunch of text and a whole lot of rating stickers at the bottom. Let me know which version you prefer, though, down in the comments. At the end of the day, this is what I like to see with re-releases, making highly expensive and niche games more accessible to people. Ninja 5.0 is available on Switch, PS4, PS5, and PC through Steam. The inclusion of a time trial mode adds to the replayability, and I also had a full slate of trophies to unlock on PS5, which makes it just a bit more fun to go through seeing them pop as you free all the hostages or defeat a boss on a higher difficulty. I also noticed a bunch of additional languages are available on the main menu with one button, letting you change between them on the fly, which is nice to see for two reasons. One, it makes it so more people can enjoy the game, and two, it makes it easy to change languages from the menu, which if you've ever accidentally put a system or game into another language and couldn't figure out how to easily change it back, is much better. The Carbon engine continues to put in work, making Ninja 5.0 an easy recommendation, but let me know what you think about Ninja 5.0 down in the comments, especially if you remember playing it back in the day, or if you're someone right now who still owns the cartridge. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.